Everybody, thanks for tuning in to this live stream review. We're really excited to get into these and review your live streams. But first, why don't you let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and also if you have questions throughout the broadcast. We're going to be keeping our eye on the chat, so we would love to answer those questions for you, so be sure to put them there. And if we're doing your stream, if we're reviewing your stream, let us know in the comments, and feel free to give us any more details that maybe we haven't covered or things that we don't know. Fill us in. We would love to know. But we're going to start off by reviewing our own live stream. So, Dylan, are you ready for that?
Yeah, hopefully we don't make any mistakes today. I'm running the switching on the stream myself here, so let's hope it goes good. But let's go ahead and throw ours up. Alrighty, here it goes.
All I want, more of you and less of me. All I want, living in your victory. All I want, let your glory fill this place. We say there's joy when I sing your name. There's joy I cannot contain. There's joy all of my days. You will be praised. You will be praised.
All right, so that was our own live stream here at No Limits Church in Owasso, and we are now going to start this off by critiquing ourselves. We've had better. I wouldn't call it terrible, but definitely not our shiniest moment as far as a live stream makes. The main thing that I didn't like about that was the hi-hat cymbal was very washy, swimmy, distracting, too loud, and it was probably coming through the ambient mics in our room because we don't have any overhead mics or anything like that. So there's no direct sound. It's just coming through all these other mics, which is what makes it sound so weird. So probably the best fix for that would have been to talk to our drummer and say, hey, you're being a little too loud on the hi-hat. And also, I mean, the ambient mics might just be a hair too loud, and that might have been causing the problem too.
Yeah. Did you feel like my vocals were a little too loud that Sunday?
No, that didn't stick out to me.
Okay. Visually, I noticed that the screen is not centered properly. That's really the only thing that bugs me about it. Hold on, I'm looking around. You'll see our new curtain lights there. It gives kind of an ombre look going from bottom to top. And then we're still kind of experiencing the same issue because we keep forgetting us vocalists of getting the backlighting on the front of our faces because we're standing too far back. So I need to hammer that home here forward to make sure that we're standing far enough forward on the stage because we don't want colored faces. I think everything else looks good. I mean, everything's pretty consistent from week to week visually, unless the camera's just out of focus a little bit or, like I said, uncentered. That's just a little user error, but that happens. And to note, this is 2 weeks ago because we did an acoustic set last week, so I figured I'd show you a full set.
Awesome. Well, while you're loading up the next one, I just want to say hey to some people who have tuned in. Hey, Dave, thanks for being with us. And Jim and Sam, it's good to have you again for round 2. Paul, thanks for being with us. And Nicholas and Doug, he asked us that Elizabeth singing over there on the left. That is my wife, Beth Young. Her full name is Elizabeth. So do you know? I'm not recognizing that last name. Cruzan, do you recognize that?
Mm-mm.
Fill me in if we know you and for some reason I'm not making that connection. All right, so we ready to head to the next one?
I think so. So this is Turning Point Apostolic Church, and Dan Booth sent this in. So we're going to head over to Facebook to watch this. Here it goes.
We've come to praise His name, Jesus. We've come to magnify and praise His holy name. We've come to praise His name, Jesus. We've come to magnify and praise His holy name. We've come to praise His name, Jesus. Oh, we've come to magnify and praise His holy name. We've come to praise His name, Jesus. Oh, we've come to.
Man, talk about some good instrumentalists going on there. I was loving that bass player. He sounded good. I could hear a really good mix, like underneath what was going on there. The thing that was throwing it off for me was I think there was too much ambient mic going on. Like the whole thing sounded a little bit distant, almost like you had some mics in the back of the room picking up the mix rather than hearing the direct mix itself. And that was most likely caused by your ambient mics being turned up too loud in your live stream mix. So I would bring those down a little bit, and that was probably going to solve all of those problems. Like I said, I could hear a good solid mix underneath that. So I'd be interested to hear what it sounds like if you brought down those ambient mics just like 5 dB.
Yeah. Is that all for sound?
Yeah, I think so.
I actually previewed this one before the stream, and I wanted to take I did take a couple notes on it, so I'm looking at this before I throw it back up on the screen. We didn't see it in the part that I just showed, but I think let me throw it up real quick. There's another shot in here that kind of shows from behind the piano. And I think when I was seeing this, it seemed like it was a PTZ camera just by the way that it would zoom in and out from time to time. And I just noticed a few awkward shots with that where it was kind of zoomed in too close to the back of the piano player. And maybe it's just a little bit of an awkward shot in general. I mean, it's not awful, but I'm trying to find it again. I think it might just help to try something different with that shot. And then up here in your lyrics thing, I think this might look better if you could find a way to make like a banner either at the top of the screen or at the bottom instead of just having this little window up here. I don't know what you're using to stream, what software, but that's pretty easy to do in like OBS or something like that. I might just need more information to help you out with that. You can email me if you want to, and I can help you with that if that's something you're interested in doing. But the colors look good. Exposure looks pretty good. One more thing, I think maybe if you took these two vocalists here and moved them either to the middle or one over here, it'd help balance just everybody on the stage. It looks a little lopsided over here, especially with the piano player. I think that's about it. I don't know how much further you can zoom in with your camera, but it might be good to get it a little closer.
Yeah, just to kind of hone in on what he was talking about with the projector feed up at the top right. If you wanted to make that like a more thin banner that goes full width across the top, you'd have to like reduce that down to just 2 lines of text instead of 3 to 4. And also you'd have to have a second scene of sorts to where if you did need something that was full screen, like maybe you were showing an image or something like that, you would just go to that by itself and you wouldn't see the camera at all. And like Dylan said, if you want some help on how to implement that, you can just shoot him an email. It's Dylan@collaborateworship.com. And you spell that Dillon.
No I before the O, please. Everybody always does that.
Dillion.
All right. Anything else to say about that one?
No. Let's move on to the next one.
All right. Did you have any comments on that one that you wanted to look at real quick?
Just say hello to a few other people who have hopped on. We got Caleb from Alaska, and we got somebody from Georgia there, and Doug is from Abiding Word Church. I just thought that was interesting because our church actually used to be called Abiding Word Fellowship Church. So pretty cool there. Let's see. Rose says, what about time alignment on this clip? I didn't notice any time alignment issues. Go ahead and play that again real quick, and let's take a look again.
Maybe ever so slightly off. I don't really notice it, though.
Yeah, it was a little bit off, but yeah, I didn't notice it because the camera's so zoomed out. So I imagine if it was a close shot, you would notice the time issue. I mean, it's just like milliseconds.
One thing that you can do to help with setting your timing is obviously in your program, there's a way you can delay things. Let me go back to ours and show you kind of what I would do. So the screen is in the shot, and what I would do is I would go to YouTube, search audio time alignment, and different videos will come up, and it'll have a thing that like turns around or a ball that bounces, and it shows you how delayed or ahead it is. And so I'll play that on the screen, and then it's receiving audio from the mixer, and that's what I'm trying to align it to. And then you can kind of just adjust it and keep going back to look at it. That's the easiest way to do it to me. If you don't have a screen in your shot like we do, you can probably just like throw a computer or an iPad up on the stage and play it on that, and then just play the audio into your mixer. That's the easiest way I've found.
Yeah, I find that whole process to be very frustrating, so I'm glad that Dylan takes care of that.
All right, moving on. Let's go to Inspiration Church. This was submitted by James Elledge. Really quick, let me make sure he didn't have any notes on that. His was mostly visual stuff, but let's take a look at audio and everything. So here we go.
There is no weapon.
I think I'm seeing that our computer feed's frozen back there.
Oh, it looks like it is.
Well, bummer. Hold on, let me fix that real quick. Read us some comments in the meantime.
Let's see. Greetings from Germany. Hey, awesome. Thanks for being with us. Oh, it says timing is showing way off in the live stream on this video. So I wonder if that's a timing issue on our end.
That's weird. We'll just know that it looked fine for us.
We'll look into that before we do this again and see if there's something that we need to adjust in our OBS.
That's weird. Nobody noticed that last time we did it, and we're doing it the same way.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Live streaming.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know. We'll look into that and get it fixed.
Okay, Okay, freezing is fixed now. Let's listen to that again. Of course, now we're not getting audio. Let me fix that. Lord have mercy.
Oh, man. So this is a good example of we probably need to change the process that we're using. We're currently streaming Dylan's computer to a Roku device that's then connected to OBS, and Dylan's computer doesn't seem to like the Roku as much as mine, so maybe we just need to swap laptops because we use the Roku without fail on Sunday mornings whenever I'm preaching from my computer. So it's probably because yours has that darn M1 chip that's so super fast and awesome, but doesn't always play well with everything else going on.
That just made me think we never do use the Roku for audio, though. So we've never really tested that with audio. So that might be our problem with the delay. So sorry about that. Okay, let's see. Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with what I liked about that is that the lead vocal was right in the front there. You could hear every word that she was saying. So I'm always telling our sound guys here at No Limits, if you can hear the lead vocal, like that's the most important part of your mix. And if you get that right, then it forgives a lot of other things that you didn't get right. So high five on that one. I think I was hearing a guitar that was out of tune. That was kind of bothering me. So did you hear that too, or was it just me?
I didn't notice it.
Okay. So that could or may not have been the issue, but it was just sounding a little wonky, and usually that's what it is. One of the guitars is out of tune.
Hold on, let me listen to that again. The electric.
Yeah, I think it's the electric guitar. Anyway, that's a simple fix, right? You just make sure that they tune before every service, and sometimes you need to tune between. I mean, I'm not a guitar player, so you tell me, Dylan. You have to tune between songs sometimes.
Sometimes, if you can. I would say it's good too if you have the time to between songs.
And I know not every guitar player notices whenever they're out of tune, so maybe you need some kind of signal for those who have a hard time noticing. It's like, hey, why don't you tune between the next song? But other than that, I thought that the mix between the guitars was good. Like I could hear them all distinctly, and not one was sticking out more than the other. The bass guitar was sounding a little swimmy to me. Like there was nothing distinct about it. The notes just kind of like whoa, whoa, whoa. And that could be maybe an EQ issue. Maybe you're cutting out too much of those mid frequencies out of the bass guitar, and which a lot of people think that it's okay to do that. Like, all I need is the low frequencies from the bass guitar, right? And it's like, well, you actually need the other stuff too, because that's what brings clarity to those movements as the bass guitar plays. So I would take a look at that EQ, make sure you're not cutting out too much mid frequencies, or make sure you're not boosting too much in the low frequencies, because that could be causing the problem too. But yeah.
All right, visuals. I think the thing that sticks out to me first, and this might just be something that you have trouble with your room, is the camera not being centered with the stage. It's kind of off to the side. And I know sometimes you just got to work with what you can. So that might be the scenario, and that's all right. But I love what you have going on back here. The first thing I noticed that I would say pick this to work on right now is your front lighting is pretty inconsistent. So she's really bright, and then he's kind of dark, and he's about right. So that's going to mean you're going to have to get up in the ceiling and do some adjusting. Maybe you could do that at the board. I don't know how you have stuff set up, but definitely get her lighting down some, and maybe bring him further up on the stage to brighten him up if you can. But his exposure is looking good. Maybe a teensy bit on the bright side, but it's pretty close. And then white balance, it might be a tad warm and a little bit green. So if you can, in the camera, adjust your green and magenta, maybe push it a little bit more towards the magenta. If you can't do that in camera, you should be able to do it in your streaming software. And then I think one last thing, the haze is looking a little inconsistent. So I see a lot of haze over here. And then there's not really much going on over here. So maybe work with moving your haze machine around. Try to use some fans to get it blowing across the stage more consistently. And if you can't get it looking consistent, I would say it might just not be worth messing with. I mean, I think you can get it looking good without haze. We don't use haze at our church, and I think it looks fine. But I like the amount of backlighting you have going on. I think that's pretty cool. Not really sure how you did this with the screen, the lines on it. Kind of gives Life Church vibes. I don't know if you've seen their screen that they have that has that line kind of thing going. It's cool. I think that's all I have, though.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, you want to read some comments while I get the next one queued up?
Yeah, Jim's on here, and he goes to the church that we just watched. That's Inspiration Church in Mesquite. He said they had a new bass player that service, so that's awesome. It's always great to have a new musician, which comes with its own challenges, of course, but I know that as they keep playing with the team, they'll get all that figured out. He says they have a combo of LED and incandescent lights for now, and the hazer is behind the piano. That's why there was so much haze on that one side. So maybe they just need a fan to spread that out a little better. Separate panels on the screen, that's what was causing the lines. So I'm glad that he was here. Thanks, Jim, for giving us all the info about what you have going on there. You guys have a really good thing going, so thanks for sharing that with us.
Real quick, something I'll show you with the haze. So if you look at ours, we did try haze for a little bit, and I actually got it to look pretty consistent. We just stopped doing it because our room is so small, and without throwing a bunch of money down on a really nice hazer, we couldn't get it to look proper. It was just a little too thick in this room, so that's why we stopped doing it. But I did get the consistency down at some point. And what I found out is you just have to figure out what the airflow of the room is, and I figured out that air was moving from left to right on the stage. Don't know why, but that's what it was doing. So I put the hazer down underneath the stage in this back left corner of the stage. And then I had a fan on the stage behind this guy, basically, that was blowing this direction just to kind of help move it a little quicker, because it would gather here pretty quickly and not very much over here. So that was pushing it. And as long as the haze kept running, it would stay pretty consistent. So little tip, that might help somebody else too, in case you're wondering. You just got to move it around and keep experimenting.
Yeah, Dylan did a lot of work trying to get the haze right in here, so you should create a video or something about that. He spent weeks and weeks on it, and then I told him that we're not going to use it anymore. So, in case you don't know, I'm the lead pastor here at No Limit Church, so sometimes I have to make those hard calls. But like he said, our room is so small, he got the haze really even, but the same amount of haze was everywhere in the room, and it just kind of made it feel like you were in a cloud whenever you were out in the congregation. We would love to have tried, is it CO2 haze? Was that the next upgrade? But I mean, you're talking
Thousands
of dollars, and it just
didn't make sense.
We don't have movers or anything going on here. Yeah. So it just didn't make sense.
It's not what we'd like to spend some of our budget on. So,
yeah.
All right. So moving on, we're going to Rejoice Lutheran Church. And this was submitted by, they didn't leave a name, I guess. Let's see. Throw it up, and here we go.
Jesus, my Redeemer. You paid my ransom. You chose to suffer, oh my Redeemer. Oh my Redeemer.
So,
good.
did they have a piano player there?
There
Or
was
was
a
it just-
piano over there. Maybe they didn't this week, but I see a piano.
I didn't know if I could hear them or not. But yeah, I love the clarity of that. Very good job with that. I also noticed the panning, and that's not something that everybody is using. So kudos on doing that as well. The acoustic guitar was panned to the left, which it was aligned visually, which is nice too. And then the electric guitar was panned to the right. I would say though, since to me in that song that you were just playing, the acoustic guitar was the lead instrument of that song. In that case, I don't prefer to have the lead instrument panned at all. I'd rather have it dead center because it kind of takes away from the fact that it's lead. If it's panned over to the side, then your brain is just trying to figure out, well, what is the lead instrument in this song? So I would play with that. If the acoustic guitar's lead, pan them back to the center, and then if the electric guitar's lead, then you can pan them back to the left a little bit, bring the electric guitar to the center. And the cool thing, if you're using the X32 or really any digital mixer for that matter, you can save those scenes or those snippets, and it'll save the panning parameters for each song, so it makes it easy to recall from song to song. Also, I want to comment on the bass guitar. We had a problem with the previous stream of it not sounding defined enough, and you should have noticed that with that one, the bass guitar sounded really good. It was very defined, it was clear, and great job with that.
You think there might have been, besides the whole lead instrument thing, a little too much panning? Like
Yeah, it may have been
been
maybe panned too far to the left. When it comes to, a small adjustment makes a big difference when it comes to panning. I don't think that there's anything that we're panning really more than 20% one way or the other. I'm gonna have to pull up our mix to verify that. There's maybe certain cases if you had a lot of instruments going on and you can really mess with that, then you can pan something. Maybe I wouldn't go any more than 50%. I'd never go 100% to the left or to the right because that would sound strange. But I think that sweet spot is somewhere between 15 and maybe 25%. And Rose on here, Dylan, she asked us if we would play it one more time after I talked about what I would fix in the mix so she can actually hear those differences. So go ahead and play that again.
It's a different song. See if I can find that other one.
So, my Redeemer.
Yeah, you hear that electric guitar was way over to the right. I pulled out my right ear to see if it was even in the left. It was a little bit, so he wasn't 100%, but I bet he was more than 50.
One comment, I've noticed watching other streams before that I've seen vocals panned. Would you ever recommend panning vocals?
Maybe if you had a choir, like a bunch of vocals.
Let's say like our scenario, we have 4 vocals. Are you panning any of us?
No. And it's because there's not more than one of you on one part usually. Somebody's obviously doubling up on lead if there's 4 of you. If I had multiple people singing the same part, like say I had 2 or 3 altos or 2 or 3 tenors or whatever, then I may experiment a little bit with panning, but not very much.
Okay, that's just something that came to mind. I wanted to see what your thoughts were. Visuals. Let's see. Let me go back to this wide shot. 2 things I want to say. White balance is looking a little cold to me. His face looks a little blue, and that might be from an iPad on the stand too. If that's the case, you can always put True Tone or Night Shift on your iPad to help with that, so the lighting that's casting on you is a little warmer. Or you can just turn your screen brightness down a bit. But he also looks a little blue. So maybe just warm up your camera a little bit, or maybe you like your stuff to look a little cold. That's cool too. But
So just in case I don't know, when you talk about warm up your camera, like what setting are they changing?
the white balance. So you would be, if you're on Kelvin, which is what I would recommend because you can change it in increments of 100 Kelvin. The higher you go, the warmer it's going to look. The lower you go, the cooler it's going to look. Right? Am I getting that backwards? You just adjust and you'll see what happens. I don't know why my brain is confusing me right now. You could also try the presets like daylight, tungsten. Obviously, those are preset to a certain Kelvin. So if your lighting is different than that preset, then it's probably not going to look right. That's why I suggest using the Kelvin setting if your camera has it. If not, use a preset that's close enough and then adjust it in your streaming software. And then one last thing. There's kind of a lot of cables going on the floor. And I understand that. I know we've got quite a few that need to be cleaned up on our stage. It helps with us that our stage is black, so cables are a little more hidden. But maybe you might also set this up every week too. So that also takes some time away from being able to cable manage things. But if you're able to, I would say cable manage a little bit better, and it'll clean up the shot quite a bit. We used to have behind us, let me go back to our camera feed, behind us for the vocalist used to be P16s on stands and all the cables hanging down from it. And what I did is I moved them to the floor and put them behind this little wooden barrier, and it cleaned up the look behind us a lot. So anytime you can get cables or stands out of the shot, it's going to make it look so much better. I wish I had a before and after to show you, but I know we have a video on our channel of that too.
I can just feel people cringing at like spending hours cable managing, right? But I bet you there's somebody on the team that actually likes stuff like that.
I hate doing it, but I love the results. So cable manage everywhere you can. It'll help visually so much.
Good stuff. All right, well, he's pulling up the next one. I want to answer Rose's question she asked. So what I'm hearing is that you only pan guitars and keys. Yes, pretty much. The drums, I will pan the toms on the drums. So kick and snare, dead center. Toms, I may like pan, if you have two toms, pan one slightly to the left and one slightly to the right. That adds some interest. If you have three toms, you can pan one even further to the left, one almost to center, and then one to the right. And so it's kind of like do, do, do. And it kind of just moves across. I really like that. That's something that I enjoy. So I always program in our drums that way. When it comes to guitars, I rarely pan the acoustic guitar because we usually only have one. I will pan electric guitars. If I have two electric guitars, I'll pan one to one side and one to the other. But if I only had one electric guitar, I'd probably keep it closer to the center. So it all depends on what your band's makeup is and what kind of instrumentalists you have on the stage. Now, as a side note, I love running keyboards in stereo, which means they have two inputs. I'm a keys player, so that's probably why I have this bias, but I think they sound significantly better whenever they're running in stereo. And in that case, you would have one input all the way to the left and one input all the way to the right. Anytime you run something in stereo, that's what you're going to do. Same thing for like your feed from your computer where you're running videos and things like that. You want to run that in stereo too. One all the way to the left, one all the way to the right. And maybe if you have the question, well, what if our room mix is in mono, which a lot of churches are that way? I would still plug these things in stereo because your live stream mix should be in stereo. And there's a good chance that somebody's listening to your live stream through headphones, and it's going to make a big difference for you to run that mix in stereo versus mono. So even if your room mix is in mono, you can still run your live stream mix in stereo.
What if keyboard, you want to take it to stereo, but what if you're not playing any stereo patches? Would you still do it?
I would still do it because there is so much interest in a keyboard sound. Like even if it's just a piano sound and you run it in stereo, it's going to add these inflections in the sound. I notice it probably because I'm a keyboard player, but I think you would notice it too. It takes the piano from sounding one-dimensional to sounding like this big instrument that it is. So yeah, your keyboard is outputting something different between the left and the right signal, and then whenever you plug it in mono, it's just kind of summing those two things together, and you're kind of losing that. Another way to explain it is if you run your keyboard in stereo instead of mono, it's going to sound wider. It's just going to sound, there's going to be more space there, and I don't know the technical terms to explain why that happens, but that is the sound difference. It goes from sounding very focused and one-dimensional to sounding like this big, wide instrument.
We used to run our backing tracks in mono too, and we switched to stereo at some point. Did you notice a big difference in that?
I did notice a big difference because sometimes there's some panning going on in the backing tracks that you get, and so that enables the panning to be there in your mix. But just like with the keyboard, it took the backing tracks from sounding like very kind of focused and one-dimensional to widening them out, which helped them also to fit better with the band. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, if you're using backing tracks, sometimes they just kind of poke out and they don't sound like they fit because they're like mastered tracks and the audio is perfect, and then your band's audio, it's not exactly perfect, but running it in stereo kind of helps it mesh with everything else that's going on and sound like part of the band rather than something that's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the next one. We got Joy Community Church. I didn't get a name on this one either, so here we go.
as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I'm safe with you.
Okay, awesome. I'm trying to figure out if the issue was too much reverb or too much ambient mics. One or the other. I would check both of those things. With the drums, I noticed that I was hearing more of the ambient mic than I was hearing of the actual drum. And if you listen back closely, you'll hear that, like, you hear this reverb over here, like off in the distance, and you kind of like hear the actual signal of the drum. So you need to work out the balancing of that. I would start by just like bringing your ambient mics down and then bringing them back up and kind of remixing them into there. I always like to bring them up until I can hear them, notice they're there, and then dial it back down a bit so that it blends in. That's going to fix a lot with that mix. I can hear a really, really great mix underneath that too much ambient noise going on. So this reminds me of kind of like the first one we reviewed. They had the same problem. If you fix that one thing, I think it's going to make the mix just sound really awesome.
I think it sounds decently full, though.
Yeah, it does.
One thing I noticed audio-wise is the acoustic sounded a little twangy. Did you notice that?
Yeah, a little bit.
How could you fix that?
It could be an EQ thing, like you could be cutting out too much of the warmth of the guitar, or I'm thinking like that issue is probably happening somewhere around the 800 hertz range. So take a look at that. Also, like, have your acoustic guitar player themselves adjust their EQ. I always want them to give me a level EQ so that I can then adjust it at the mix. And sometimes acoustic guitar players like to change things up on you and adjust all those little knobs on your guitar and give you something different each week to mess with. So yeah, I would check with them and make sure they're giving you what you want to have back at the mixer, because that could solve your problem too. And also, I mean, it could be a pickup thing, right? Changing out your pickup on your acoustic guitar can make a huge difference. Why don't you talk to that, Dylan?
I'm on this journey right now of figuring out acoustic guitar pickups and how you can get a consistently good sound between volunteers who all have different guitars, which all have different guitar pickups, and they all sound so different, and none of them really sound like an actual acoustic guitar. It's incredibly frustrating. So I reached out to this company that sent me this cool guitar pickup that it doesn't have to be installed. It's a microphone that kind of just goes into the sound hole. And so I'm still doing some testing with that to figure out if it's a good viable option. And I'll have a video coming out on that soon. And then I have a Taylor 214 CE, and I'm not a big fan of the Taylor electronics. So I had a professional luthier install an LR Baggs Anthem pickup. It's a really expensive pickup, but boy, does it sound good. It's a little bit invasive to get it installed because you do have to, kind of do some drilling. So that's why I took it to a professional. But I think it sounds really good. What do you think?
It made a huge difference. It's worth every dollar. And in case you don't understand, like the reason it sounds so different is because your pickup is your microphone. And we do this with our vocals too. We'll try out different microphones on different vocals because they're all going to give you a different sound. And every vocal's different too, right? So some are going to sound better with a different microphone. So it's the same thing with the acoustic guitar. Different pickups are going to give you a completely different sound. And we were always fighting with his guitar beforehand, just trying to get a quality sound out of it. It always sounded a little twangy with the pickup that it came with, but you swap that out, we don't ever have any issues anymore because he's given us a great sound to work with from the beginning instead of us trying to manipulate something that we didn't like to begin with anyways.
So I think the coolest thing about that specific pickup, the LR Baggs Anthem, is it has a microphone, an actual microphone, and an element pickup called a piezo pickup, which goes underneath the bridge of your guitar. And so that the piezo pickup is picking up the vibrations of the strings. And when you have just a piezo pickup by itself, which a lot of guitars have, it'll sound a little quacky. That's how it can be described. But then with this pickup, you have the microphone as well, and you can mix between the two to figure out the best balance for your guitar. And you can even boost clarity in the microphone. And so it gives you a lot more versatility between two different kinds of pickup methods to get the best sound out of your guitar. So if you have $300 and a little bit of change to have it installed, I would highly recommend it. I think it's very worth it.
Awesome. No, I don't think you commented on the visuals yet on this one.
Sorry, we got into a rabbit hole there. Let me hop around here. One thing I noticed, here it is. Okay, so when I saw a shot similar to this a second ago, I noticed that there's a lot of blue on a vocalist's face. Maybe that's just something you're doing for effect at a certain part because he wasn't like that a second ago. So that's fine. I wanted to make sure you didn't just have colored lighting on some of your vocalists. Maybe it's just this song too. I mean, that's not really my preference, but you do you if you want to have colored lighting on the front for a specific song. I think it makes him look a little Oompa Loompa-ish. But again, that's your preference. You do you. It's your church. I think white balance between cameras is looking pretty consistent. Let me stay over here in this one. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty consistent. Let me see if there's another song. That's the sermon. He looks a little cold and a little magenta. Maybe a little dark too. So if you could adjust those things. Otherwise, I think everything looks pretty good. I don't really notice anything sticking out besides the before mentioned things. I like that you only have 2 lines of lyrics going on. Anything you notice?
I thought it looked a little blue and magenta too, and I wonder if that's because they must be using LED front lighting, the way that it's changed colors and it's been blue and then not blue. And that can often give you some weird casting and some weird colors that you can't necessarily get out with the camera. You have to actually swap out the light source. I prefer not to use color changing LED lighting for front lighting. We've used it before. We've even used like RGBWA, like it had white and amber and like all these things to work with, and you could never get it to look right. So now our front lighting is LED, but it's only 1 Kelvin. It's 3500 Kelvin. So you can't change the color at all. It's just giving you a nice quality, warm light to work with. I would highly recommend that for your front lighting so your skin tones are always consistent. I'm kind of a skin tone junkie. If the skin tones are right on a visual, then it covers up a lot of mishaps.
The more money you spend on lights, the more skin accuracy you're going to get. When you have cheap lights, their CRI is what it's called, is just not going to be that accurate. And if you have different kinds of lights, you're also going to get different kinds of color cast. So if you're mixing front lighting, some people might look magenta, some people might look green, some people might look more cool, more warm. So I think it's really important to have a good budget for your front lighting. Maybe work towards it in the future if you need an upgrade. I think these fixtures we have are about $600 a piece, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good middle of the road price. You could definitely get a lot more expensive than that, but we've been pretty happy with them. We only have 2, and it's covering the whole front of our stage, but it's also not very wide. But they do spread pretty wide. So just some things to note when it comes to lighting.
Yep. So Ant Tech Geek is dropping some good wisdom here in the comments. Panning does not need to be hard left and hard right. That is true. Very good, especially if you're just panning an instrument. Like, you definitely don't want to go hard left or hard right like we talked about. If you have a stereo instrument, I think that's probably what he's talking about. You don't have to go hard left, hard right on a stereo instrument. You can dial that back in if you don't want it to sound as wide, or, you can adjust that to your preference. He says he likes putting 2 mics on a guitar cab and then panning those to make the guitar feel bigger and wider. Yeah, same concept with the guitar that you can do with the piano, right? You can make it sound bigger by using multiple mics. Let's see. How do you go about copying for a worship song for my live stream on YouTube? Copywriting. I think he's saying copywriting. How do you deal with the copywriting issue for worship songs on live stream for YouTube?
I don't know if there is anything you can do, to be honest. Is there?
No, and YouTube will let you leave your video up.
You just can't monetize it.
Yeah, you can't monetize it. So what this means is if they have a copyright claim on your video because you're playing copyrighted songs, they're still going to show your video, but they're also going to run ads on your video, and the person who owns the song is going to get the ad revenue from the video. So say you're doing something from Hillsong, right? They now have the right to run ads on your video so that they can earn money for you singing their song, which makes sense to me. So
yeah, that's only fair.
I don't think there's anything that you need to do with that. Just roll with it. Don't worry about it. I know it can sound kind of or look kind of scary, right? When they're like, copyright warning on your video. It's nothing to worry about.
There is a more serious version of copyright on YouTube, where I think maybe if you're doing some kind of monetization in the video, like a sponsor of some sort, and then you also have copyright music on there, I think you get a much harder strike. Don't quote me on that, but I think that might be the case.
Never seen that.
But we post one worship video from our previous Sunday set every week on our YouTube channel, and it does get a copyright on it, but it doesn't do anything to it. It might affect the way that YouTube pushes it out on home pages. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it could be. But it's worked well for us so far. So,
All right, let's do one more.
one more. Hoboken Grace Church. Here we go.
Yeah, awesome. Welcome to Hoboken Grace. We're so glad. This freedom, come out of the dark, just as you are, into the fullness of His love. For the Spirit is here. Let there be freedom. Let there be freedom. Bring all of the burdens, bring all of
All right. I liked how I could hear everything in the mix. Like the lead guitar was very lead. That doesn't happen a lot. I hear a lot of church mixes where there's supposed to be this awesome lead guitar part, and then you can barely hear it. It even happens at our church sometimes. So I love that I could hear that prominent part. I'm very familiar with that song, and I would have expected to hear that, and I got to hear it. So I'm very pleased with that. I noticed that the mix is thin or harsh. Either you're cutting out a lot of the mid frequency range. I'm talking like 200 hertz to 800 hertz. I know there's some nastiness in there. The temptation is to just cut it out of everything. But then you end up with a mix kind of like this where it just sounds kind of like, what's missing? Like I'm missing something there. And it could be because you're trying to boost in the like 1 kilohertz to 4 kilohertz range too, because that's what's going to be harsh. I can't tell. I would have to see your setup on if you're doing one or the other. Are you boosting in that range, or are you cutting too much out of this mid-frequency range? But you need to balance that back out, because I imagine if we looked at an RTA, a real-time analyzer for that mix right there, you're going to see those higher frequencies like registering way up here, and then you're going to see this dip kind of in the 200 to 800 hertz range. And then I heard like the kick drum in like maybe the 80 hertz range. You might see a little peak there. But I'd say we're probably even missing like 100 hertz to 200 hertz, because even that kick drum sounds like a poof, but there was nothing else other than that kind of air moving, which probably sounded great in the room, because those are the frequencies that you feel whenever you got the subwoofer on. But here I am listening to it in these headphones, and so I don't get to have that feel from it. I need some more presence to it. So yeah, take a look. I don't know if you are running an overall EQ on your live stream mix that's causing those issues, or maybe you're cutting out everything out of each individual instrument, but I would go through and just check out your EQ. It sounds like it's a little too aggressive. Maybe even try leveling it out and starting over, so you can get a nice warm and clean mix at the same time, because you can have both.
Okay, so I'll play it one more time so you can hear.
Hearts made whole, hearts awake at the sound of Jesus' name. Chains will fall, prison shake at the sound of Jesus' name. Lives made whole.
Do I hear some vocal tuning in there? I think there might be some.
Yeah, it sounded really accurate.
Yeah, they sound good.
Yep.
A little side note on vocal tuning. If you've never experimented with it, I would highly recommend it. Our stream that we showed you at the beginning of the video had vocal tuning on it. And all of us, I would say, are pretty decent vocalists. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but we're decently accurate. But there's still always going to be some notes that just, even if someone's not musical, their subconscious is just kind of hurt by hearing it, the inaccuracy. So what it did is it helped us just be more accurate, yes, artificially, but it helps with that subconscious nature as someone is watching the stream, that those things just don't really stick out and pull them out of it, if that makes sense. And we have a video on how to set that up on the Behringer X32, even if you don't have Dante, because we don't have Dante on our X32, and it can be done. It's a little bit more of a workaround, but go check that out if you're interested in testing that out. Does that translate over to other mixers too in that video?
Yeah. There's going to be some differences depending on how your mixer is set up, but you should be able to do it with any digital mixer that gives you 32 in, 32 out capabilities.
Okay, let's take a look at visuals here. I think your skin tones look great. Everything's looking good. I don't know what that was. One thing I did notice, I was scrubbing around as Cade was talking. I noticed cameras being a little tilted. They weren't level, horizon leveled. So maybe see if you can fix that.
You know, one thing I want to point out too here is earlier you mentioned how not everybody was exposed uniformly and how weird it was. And the reason it was weird in that previous shot is because everybody was like in the same depth area of the stage. But in here you have different exposures going on, but that's because some people are further back in the stage. And I don't think that causes a problem in that regard, do you?
No, I like it. That's what we do here. There's no front lighting on the people in the back, our instrumentalists. Let me go back and show you real quick. Glad I left this up. So you'll see that they're probably he's catching a little bit of front lighting, but they're just backlit, and they do have a little bit of wash on their face just because of the nature of the backlighting. But that's how I like it. I like a little bit of separation between the vocalist and the instrumentalist. The vocalists are just, that's what people are focusing on. They're singing along with you. And we've actually been experimenting with dropping our front lighting quite a bit in slower songs just to take some focus off of the vocalist. Cade likes that a lot. I like it a lot in the room, but I really hate the way it looks on the live stream. It's kind of the bummer. There might be something we could do either in OBS or in camera to bump up exposure during worship, but it's definitely going to look more noisy, which I'm not a big fan of. So,
And then the screen would probably be overexposed at that point.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. Lighting is it's a lot of fun.
we always prioritize the room though over the live stream.
Yeah.
We want to have a great live stream experience, but not at the cost of what's going on in the room. So if something that we want to happen in the room to those who show up in person is going to cause an issue on the live stream, then we usually just roll with it.
And when I post these later on YouTube, it is kind of a bummer that it doesn't look the best on the live stream if we've dropped the front lighting down. But most people are just going to listen to it, not to watch it. I mean, it's just one camera shot anyway, so I know they're not going to see the incredible visuals. But I think you guys are doing a great job visual-wise. Your exposure looks good. White balance looks good. I like the different shots you have going on. Really, the only thing I would say is the horizon leveling. I might have only seen it on a shot or two.
Awesome. We got one more thing to show you. We're going to give you a preview of a lesson in our course, Church Sound Made Simple. But before we get into that, I want to answer a few comments here. Hey, Daniel. Yeah, we're reading the chat. Sorry I missed your question earlier. He's wanting to know where to submit his live stream review. Do we have a quick link to that, or should he just shoot you an email?
In the description of this video.
In the description of this video, yeah, click the link and you can submit your information for the next time. We do these once a month, so anybody who's watching right now and you want your live stream reviewed, just use that link in the description to give us your information, and we'll add that to the queue. They just mentioned that they had a more serious copyright strike on some material on YouTube. So these days we check out the copyright. Yeah. And somebody mentioned that they had issues on Facebook with copyright. Hector said that, but now they just add, we don't own the copyright, like in text at the bottom of the screen. And apparently that helped deal with the issue. So thanks for that tip, Hector. That's awesome.
Good to know.
All right, so we're going to show you a lesson from Church Sound Made Simple, just so you can have an idea of what's going on in that course. That's really like our flagship course, where we teach you everything you need to know to get not only a great room mix, but a great live stream mix. The way I teach live stream mixing is you basically take a copy of your room mix and you make a few modifications before sending it to your live stream, and then your live stream mix follows the room mix because everything is set mostly to post fader. I thought it was kind of crazy to do it that way because everybody else is kind of getting a different mixer or a control room or things like that. And then I started going around to some of the big churches here in the Tulsa area, like Church on the Move and Victory, and found out they're doing the same thing we're doing here at our church. They're just making a copy of their room mix basically and sending it out, adding the ambient mics and stuff like that. So that's what we teach in the course. But in order for that to work, you have to have a great room mix, and you got to know how to EQ, how to compress, how to use gating, and all that good stuff. And that's what Church Sound Made Simple is all about. So why don't we play you a test lesson here so you can see what it's like inside the course. When your live stream makes it to Facebook, YouTube, or wherever it's going, it tends to sound a little dull. And this can be perplexing because it sounded just fine in the headphones coming out of your mixer. What happened? Well, what's going on here is file compression. To make sure everyone has a good streaming experience, Facebook and YouTube work to make the video file as small as it can be without losing too much quality, but it still loses quality. And one way to combat this is with a simple EQ filter. You see, the place your ear notices the quality loss is in those really high frequencies. These are the frequencies that make the sound bright and exciting. So all you have to do is boost these a little bit to compensate for the quality loss that's about to happen whenever your live stream hits Facebook or YouTube. This filter will go on the bus mix that you're using for your live stream, so let me walk you through it. Select your live stream bus and navigate to the EQ for that bus. Find an available EQ filter and change the type to a high shelving filter. Set the frequency to around 12 kilohertz and boost about 6 dB. If you have your two live stream buses linked together, this filter will be applied to both automatically. If they're not linked together, you'll need to add this same filter to your other live stream bus. And that's it. This should brighten up your live stream mix and give it some brilliance. But keep in mind, it is going to sound a little bit strange coming out of the headphones that are connected to your mixer. It may sound a little harsh, but once that file is compressed on Facebook or YouTube, you'll be really glad that you added this little filter. All right, so it's always great to watch yourself and hear yourself. I'm kidding, that's kind of strange.
Hey, look, I got 287 points for watching that.
Way to go, Dylan. Is that the first video you've watched in the course?
I guess so.
My goodness, you need to get busy.
Wait, real quick. Someone that might be saying, hey, this looks like something I could just get on your YouTube channel. Why do they want the course?
So you're going to find maybe 20% of what's in the course on the YouTube channel that's spread throughout the YouTube channel. Like you kind of got to search it out and find it. There's bits and pieces here and there. The course is a streamlined system where you learn it step by step by step by step, and there's no missing pieces. It's all beautifully put together in the way that you need to learn, and you're going to learn it in the fastest way possible. You're not going to have to go searching through all my videos on YouTube and all these quick tips, trying to put them together like we put it all together for you in the course. And also, I offer a team option of the course, which I highly recommend because then you can get all your team working towards the same goal and creating a mix that's consistent from week to week. And there's some cool team features within the course. Like there's a team chat, so you can chat about each video that's only visible to your team. And if you're a team admin, you can see what's going on with your team, which lessons they've completed, how far they are in the course. You can send them quick reminders, hey, I want you to watch this lesson and things like that. And that's all available in the team course. And you also unlock some discounts, like you get, I think is it 20% off of all the other courses like X32 Mastering, things like that. But anyways, you can learn about all that and how it's laid out at churchsoundmadesimple.com. You'll see all the pricing options and everything like that. And I'm just going to throw in something today. If any of you are able to sign up today for Church Sound Made Simple for any of the plans, whether it's individual, team, or unlimited, I'm going to send you a free t-shirt. I don't know if you've seen our t-shirts. Dylan, go ahead and pull that up real quick so they can go to shop.collaborateworship.com. We have some really cool t-shirts. We hired an awesome graphic designer, and you're only going to find these on shop.collaborateworship.com, or just go to collaborateworship.com and click on t-shirts. The most popular one is that first one there, which says God's front of house man, and there's one that says you're 3 dBs too loud. These are not designs that we've taken from somewhere else, and then we're just kind of reselling the t-shirts. These are designs that are unique to Collaborate Worship. So definitely go check those out if you haven't already, because there's some pretty awesome designs going on there. But like I said, anybody who signs up for Church Sound Made Simple today, I'm going to send you a free t-shirt of your choice. You get to pick whichever one you like there. And how I'll keep track of that is tomorrow I'll get on there and see who signed up for Church Sound Made Simple today, and I'll send you all an email and let you know how to access that free t-shirt.
One more thing as I'm in the minds of the people watching. You would call this less of a how to master sound and more of like how to get the team on the same page with sound, right?
Right. So one of the biggest problems with church sound is we only have one volunteer and he's been doing it forever, and nobody else will help because they get overwhelmed, right? Because they see all those buttons and knobs and whatnot. That's what Church Sound Made Simple fixes. There's 2 different courses in Church Sound Made Simple. There's one that's called Onboarding Made Simple, and that's for your brand newbie who's never mixed sound before, for them to come on board and not get overwhelmed. You're just teaching them one thing a week, and the course lines that out for you, and it gives them the cheat sheets and all this kind of stuff that they need to get up and running. And it takes about 9 weeks. I don't know if that sounds like a long time or a short time, but I found that that's about the amount of time that they need just to make sure they don't get overwhelmed and run off. So I'd much rather take the 9 weeks to train somebody to create a great mix rather than run them off by trying to teach it all to them in 3 weeks. And this is all something that we've put to the test here at our church. We didn't just create it and hope that it worked. We actually created the course, and I took somebody brand new who'd never mixed sound before through the course. I said, all right, tell me what you didn't understand. And then I had to go and recreate the course because there was something, they're like, what's a low frequency? So we fixed some things like that. the courses for a newbie. And then the next step from there is consistent mixing made simple, which is included in Church Sound Made Simple. And that's to get your experienced sound techs and your new sound techs all on the same page, all mixing the same way, so you get a consistent experience from week to week, regardless of who's behind the mixer. Yes, it's possible. No, it's not going to sound exactly the same because everybody has their own flavor and their own touch, and I do recommend that you let them have that expression. You don't want robots after all. But we all want to be like EQing the same way and setting gain the same way and things like that. And that's what the course will make sure that all your sound techs are doing those foundational things the same way.
Cool. You want to check comments real quick before we end this? Real quick, if you would give this video a like, just to let YouTube know it's a good video to show to other people, we'd appreciate it. We got some cool content coming out too, so if you're not already subscribed, be sure to do that because you won't regret it.
Yep. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Ant Tech Geek is giving us some more great tips. Thanks so much for dropping all those in the comments. That's really helpful to hear your all's experience as well and your wisdom. We don't claim to know everything. We're just here teaching what we do know. So I'm grateful that you guys show up in the comments and kind of fill in the gaps and share the things that you know with us. We really appreciate you being here on this live stream, and we look forward to doing it again. Like I said, we do this once a month, so we'll see you again next month.
I'll go ahead and leave this up too in case you guys have anything else you want to discuss in the chat together. So thank you guys for being here.